days to come. What a mess we could be having in parts of the world. Already we've shown you video, we've shown you still shots in other parts of the tropics where they've already been affected by this system, and now it continues to lurch its way towards our shoreline. Hi everyone, I'm meteorologist Reynolds Wolf coming from Jacksonville Beach. Let's get you up to speed with what we know at this hour. Some new information to share with you. Irma, a powerful Category 4 hurricane, winds still at 150 miles per hour, the strongest storm on the planet. Hurricane force winds extend outward around 70 miles from the storm center. Mandatory evacuations for parts of Pasco County are now underway, and all public locations in Miami-Dade and Broward counties are going to be open until 8 o'clock this evening. So people will get the last opportunity to get some of those non-perishable items as the system comes closer. Now, let's keep the story, though, in South Florida for a bit. Let's go to Mike Seidel. Mike, people here in Jacksonville certainly getting ready. I'm sure pretty much the same scene across much of Miami.
Indeed, they've ordered a mandatory evacuation for 680,000 residents in Miami-Dade. That's Zones A, Zones B, part of C. Basically, everybody who lives east of US 1 and Biscayne Boulevard and mobile homeowners. And the University of Miami, for the first time in their history, has cleaned out their campus. Most everybody had left, but they've have some international students who they will take to a safe shelter. But look at what we've seen so far. The sun is out. We're still about a day and a half away from starting to get the direct impacts of Hurricane Irma. And I'll hop down here, and we've lost about 2.5 to 3 feet of sand. Look at this cut right here. So this gives you an idea of what we're going to be dealing with. Not only a ton of beach erosion, but the storm surge. Whoa, at least if I can get back up here. Wow. The storm surge is going to be rolling across the beach, across the dune line. All these hotels and all these condos have evacuated. Now, there could be folks in the condos because you don't have to leave. The mandatory evacuation officials would like you to leave, but the hotels are all locked down. They cleaned out all the guests yesterday, and that's for good reason. So the forecast surge here is for 10 feet of water here on the beach in Miami. And as you can imagine, I'm about 6 feet tall. And then you look towards the west, you've got the dune line, and then you've got the buildings. So more than likely, we're going to have water across the beach, across the dune line, and onto Collins Avenue. By Sunday afternoon, as the hurricane goes by, the winds will come in from the southwest. That'll push the water back out. So it's going to come up and then go back out. And again, it's the bottom line is, where is that eye wall going to hit? Now, even if we don't get the eye wall here in South Florida, we're still going to have a lot of wind. We just won't have the severe catastrophic speeds that we've seen upstream, like in the areas in the Lesser Antilles, the Virgin Islands over the past couple of days. That's been some pretty scary video. So we keep watching and waiting the track, but the bottom line is you need to prepare for a Category 4 hurricane to hit South Florida. Whether we get the extreme wind here or we get it in the Everglades or over in Naples and Fort Myers remains to be seen. Okay, next up here on the Weather Channel, we're going to take a look at the latest. Let's go back to this. Are we going to the mayor, or are we going to Dr. Postel?
All right, we'll take it from here. Thanks so much, Mike. Hi. Yeah, so we're talking about Hurricane Irma and what we're seeing out there right now. And what is this? Can you tell us what's happening right here?
This is essentially the outer edge of Hurricane Irma right now, showing up on the Miami radar, and it is sort of moving, kind of edging its way westward, so to speak, and it will probably be brushing some of the parts of the Florida coast, maybe in the next 12 hours or so. You know, a lot of this rain is kind of moving in this direction, but the band itself is kind of edging its way toward the west, all sort of way out ahead of Irma, but it is a part of it, the distant periphery of it, you can actually see now on the radar.
Exactly. And these showers that are pushing over South Florida right now, this is or is not a part of Hurricane Irma.
It's all associated with the flow around it, so yeah, you could argue that point as well. And so you could say that Florida's already now beginning to experience some of it. But look what's yet to come, because the center of Irma is a nasty, nasty hurricane with a tempest encircling that eye right in here, where the winds are high-end Category 4 winds, 145 to 150 miles per hour in there, according to the reconnaissance. And Liana, we talked about this earlier. Yeah. You look at that, you might think, well, geez, it looks like it's kind of weakening, doesn't it?
Yep, it does look like it's not quite as strong, but
The hurricane hunters are in there, thankfully, giving us that data and tell us sort of without a doubt that that is not the case. It is still right around 150 miles per hour, pressure somewhere in the mid 920 range. That's about the way it's been over the last 12 hours. It's been undergoing what's called an eye wall replacement cycle, sort of a natural internal change in the structure, which has actually kind of leveled the intensity off a bit. Remember, it was 185, say 36 hours ago. Now it's down to 150. There may be an opportunity for it to regain at least some of what it had once before. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but it may, because it's moving over some very warm water.
Yeah, I mean, and it's going to continue. There's nothing really stopping it from even strengthening even more.
That's true. That is a very true point here. So we got Irma right about there, moving this way as a Category 4, a high-end Cat 4. This is the problem. We don't know what's going to happen exactly inside of the hurricane itself, whether or not it's going to have that natural break and prevent it from intensifying, or it's actually going to consolidate a little bit better inside and allow it to get stronger. It might do that. One of the factors that worries me is how warm this water is, and the atmosphere overall will be somewhat supportive of intensification, so we have to watch out for that possibility. But regardless, expect at least a Category 4 impact across parts of the, I would say, the Florida Keys and South Florida Saturday night and Sunday.
Yeah, and I mean, essentially, even when it passes through Cuba, it's not really going to weaken anymore, so it's going to continue. I mean, look, it's not much of a difference between here and here, only 5 mile per hour difference.
That's exactly right, and there is some guidance out there. Some of the models suggest that maybe it has that opportunity to strengthen. Look, this is what happens. This is a forecast of the intensity of Hurricane Irma going Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You know what, Liana, you were pointing out some of these models right in here actually suggest that it's maybe even a little bit stronger right on close approach to the Florida Keys. That is something you don't want at all.
Not at all. I mean, it's getting close to that Category 5, and at this point, models are in good agreement. This is, I wouldn't call this necessarily a bad agreement. I mean, they're fairly close in proximity to each other.
That's exactly right. And the reason why the model intensities drop off here is that's because it's landfall. So it is very likely to make landfall at the high-end Category 4 range, perhaps even stronger than that, but then rapidly weaken during the day on Sunday as the center of Irma probably moves over interior Florida. And when that happens, when the hurricanes move over land, they often weaken, and we'll see that. But the problem is the impacts will be spread far and wide, and we'll continue to see hurricane force winds move from south to north across the entire state, practically, of Florida, beginning on Sunday morning.
Yeah, I mean, even behind it, too. We were talking about this with this particular graphic right here. I mean, even back here, the wraparound winds.
The center of Irma, probably somewhere in that vicinity. Now, this is according to the ECMWF model, the European Center, the Euro model. It has far outperformed all the others when it comes to tracks of Hurricane Irma, and it is the most reliable one right now, we think. And by Monday morning, this is telling us that there are going to be hurricane force winds coming in off the water here across parts of, I would say, Daytona Beach, Jacksonville, Savannah, perhaps even as far north as maybe even Charleston as well. And then you were mentioning on the backside of this thing, there's going to be a very strong wind off the Gulf of Mexico, pushing a lot of water that way with a storm surge risk all the way across the west coast of Florida.
Yeah, you can't get a break. I mean, on either side, that's why there are the evacuation orders further south. I mean, everyone needs to do something about this and prepare. And the window is closing, unfortunately. I mean, we're getting closer and closer to this weekend and into Monday.
Yeah, and a Monday afternoon. I mean, look at or Monday evening. The European model has the low pressure, the center of probably high-end tropical storm Irma over southern Georgia, but still bringing some hurricane force wind gusts potentially across parts of Georgia, the coast, and coastal South Carolina. And then a west wind continuing across the western part of Florida with storm surge flooding continuing all the way through the day on Monday.
Yeah, so the panhandle, I mean, is still going to be really, really bad. I mean, oh man, Dr. Purcell, I mean, I wish we had better news, but unfortunately, like we were telling people, prepare for the worst and hope for the best.
Absolutely. And if you look at this map, you might think, okay, well, the storm surge forecast doesn't go farther north than Ponce Inlet or Venice. It will. Trust me, it will. They will fill this map in at the appropriate time when the new data comes in and we're more confident on the wind direction, the wind speed, and all that kind of stuff. But there's going to be a storm surge risk all up and down the Florida, both east and west coast, and also likely into Georgia and South Carolina. It's just a matter of time before those values come in.
Now, models have been kind of changing the general track and moving it a little bit more west.
Yeah.
If it continued on further west, what would change?
Well, that would probably bring some very bad conditions farther west with it, and that would include some very high-end wind across parts of the extreme western part of Florida, including the west coast, Fort Myers, Tampa, Naples, getting into that sort of Category 3, Category 4 wind, perhaps over 100 miles per hour in gusts for sure across the western part of the state, with the eye wall, the northern eye wall, unfortunately moving with the center. But again, the impacts will be spread far and wide. Right now, the hurricane force winds extend outward about 70 miles. So even here, in this case, if the center were to go here, you would have a strong wind gusting over hurricane force here in the southern part of the state, and also all the way up through Vero Beach and eventually on northward as Irma continues that way.
And it's not even a full 24 hours really before it really makes its way further north. Is this considered kind of a quick hitter? I mean, people are still a little sensitive, especially from Harvey.
Really good question. This is not at all like Harvey on many fronts. Obviously, it's much stronger. It's bigger in many ways, but it is not going to linger in one area like Harvey did. This is not going to introduce that freshwater flooding threat that Harvey did, getting 4 feet of rain plus. This is going to bring a very significant storm surge inundation threat for both the east coast and the west coast of Florida, life-threatening storm surge, and a very high wind event all up and down the state. You can get lulled in the sense sometimes that hurricanes are more water threats and storm surge threats than they are wind. Not so with these high-end events. It is going to be a very bad wind threat all the way up into parts of Georgia.
And also, I mean, we've been talking about the storm surge as well as the wind. What about the heavy rain? I mean, it's moving fairly quickly, but how much rain is it still going to be flooding areas as well?
Freshwater flooding from rain continues on a northward path into Georgia with wind strong enough to knock down trees and create power outages as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Postel. And we're going to send it back out to Jacksonville, Florida. We're going to send it out to Reynolds.